My name is Stephen Lott, and I would like to discuss today an issue that educators have had for many years: learning disabilities. Now, principals and educators and teachers aren't the only ones who may face learning disabilities in their careers. A child and youth worker, for example, is very likely to interact with children with learning disabilities. And this is because learning disabilities affect not only a child's grades, but their sense of self, their sense of worth, their social competence. And therefore, learning disabilities can be considered a key part of a child's development. Unfortunately, despite all of this, many individuals still harbor stigmas associated with learning disabilities. This makes the study and analysis of such disabilities quite difficult, as parents are often totally closed-minded as to the idea that their child might have a learning disability. Likewise, adults who may have been diagnosed when they were in school will admit to having a learning disability, but will claim they have grown out of it somehow. Though the numbers are considered underrepresented, based on these points, it is still figured that 1 in 10 Canadians is afflicted with a learning disability. It is therefore very important to fully understand learning disabilities, as well as their effects on the social and intellectual development of children, something that is sadly very misunderstood among the public. Most children are diagnosed around ages 7 to 9, this despite the fact that signs of a learning disability are often obvious at age 1. Perhaps what is needed is more of a focus on the child's environment, the child's social standing, and integrating the child into an education system catered to looking after their unique learning needs. A CYW can perhaps provide invaluable experience on this point due to their training in understanding social cues, especially in education facilities. By that logic, I would now like to direct your attention to this PowerPoint presentation. Integrating children with learning disabilities. These are some of the misunderstandings of learning disabilities. Learning disabilities originate in the brain structure, though ultimately little is known about how or why they form. These are certainly just figures showing how misunderstood people can be. What are learning disabilities? Learning disabilities refer to a number of developmental disorders which may affect the acquisition, organization, retention, understanding, or use of information. According to the Canadian National Longitudinal Study for Children and Youth, 4% of children aged 8 to 11 were identified as learning disabled. Additionally, 1 in 5 students with a learning or attention issue will drop out of school, and students with disabilities are twice as likely to be suspended. Now, what does this mean for the role of the child and youth worker? Or what can the child and youth worker do to assist children with learning disabilities? It is important to remember that a child and youth worker can only alter the learning environment to a certain extent. At some point, it becomes the responsibility of the teacher. But it is important for the child and youth worker to understand the various learning needs of their clients, as they frequently encounter children with learning disabilities. 33.4% of young people in correctional facilities require special education courses due to learning disabilities. Many parents may be apprehensive to speak with their child's educator about the possibility of their child having a learning disability. And of course, child and youth workers, as they are trained to interact with families and family support systems, may have an upper hand in interacting and explaining this to families. Integration is key. Understanding the specifics about a particular child's learning disability. Now, this can lead to more and more accurate depiction of that child's limitations. Educators and child care professionals must communicate with parents to establish specific adjustments to the child's learning environment. CYWs should approach children with learning disabilities within the social model of general disabilities, as learning disabilities can affect the emotional makeup of a child just as much as any other type of disability. Thank you for listening to my presentation today. I hope you learned something about disabilities, learning disabilities, and how the child and youth worker can work with children with them, hopefully to a successful future. Thank you.